2 days ago, on September 13th, 2020, in the middle of a COVID pandemic, we had the unveiling for our dad, Zechron Tzedek Livracha, may his memory be a blessing, Reb Chaim ben Reb Avraham. And during that unveiling, which was attended by a small group of family, about Pardes Shalom in the Shabbat section, I gave a short Dvar Torah. And I chose to give a Dvar Torah based on the teachings of the Tzemech Tzedek, and in particular, his sefer, Derech Mitzvosecha. I chose that because for the last years of our dad's life, when he wasn't able to walk to shul because his legs or knees weren't good enough and the shul was too far away, he would spend Shabbat at home reading Derech Mitzvosecha and working his way through the teachings of the Tzemech Tzedek, the third Lubavitcher Rebbe, who lived from 1789 to 1866. And so I'd like to now, because we didn't record the session at the unveiling, I'd like to give over the Dvar Torah again. So the Tzemech Tzedek talks about the connection that we have with God, the connection we have with the supreme non-dual entity, Hashem, and notes that there is a discussion about how the energy of God comes down into the earth to sustain the earth, and how the Kabbalists, the mystical rabbis of the Middle Ages, used the term or, light, to represent what was coming down from God so that we could meet that and have a connection and a relationship. And the philosophers of the days used the term shefa, which means abundance, but it's really, behind the word abundance is also the term influence. And Tzemech Tzedek wanted to look at the difference between or and shefa, between pure light and influence. And he goes on to explain that the pure light is somewhat similar to the sun, that the sun gives off its light whether we want it or not. It's just there. However, we see things as separate in this world. And so there are channels, it's kind of like plastic tubes, if you think, through which the light shines down from Hashem into the world to create and sustain the world. And if you think of each tube perhaps being a clear plastic but a different color, so there's a yellow tube, a blue tube, a red tube, a green tube, purple tube, and so on, then our perception of what happens in the world is that every one of those light sources is different. It's a yellow light, a blue light, a red light, and so on. And when I look around the world at each person and each animal and the grass and the trees and the sky and every element that makes up this world, I see them, I perceive them as all different, as all separate, but they're all connected as one entity. And so the takeaway from this idea, this Kabbalistic idea that the light that comes down is or, the energy that comes down from Hashem to sustain this world, is one of non-duality, of one of non-separateness. So when I get isolated, when I feel separate, when I feel lonely, or when I get angry because the world isn't operating the way I think it should operate, or I get sad, I distance myself and see myself as separate from. And the teaching is that it's one pure light. It's just my perception that I'm separate from. And so anytime I feel that, I can take a breath, step back, and remember that there's one pure light. And it's through that light, that energy, that I can once again connect with the rest of the world. The Tzemech Tzedek then continues and talks about shefa as an influence, and says that the shefa, the influence, is that God is actually influenced by what happens on this world, in this world, on this earth. And God's will to shine the light down, to provide that energy, is dependent on what we do. And so it's not like the sun. The sun gives off light regardless of what happens on earth. But Hashem's will determines how much light to shed down on the world. And that brings us back into this idea of relationship, that there isn't a limitless, well, there's a limitless amount of energy coming down from Hashem because Hashem is limitless. But Hashem kind of has a dial and turns it up and down based on how we turn and face towards Hashem, based on what relationship we decide we want to have. And the Tzemech Tzedek says there actually isn't a disparity between those two ideas of or and shefa, between light and influence, that Hashem actually holds both of those. So we get the light, we get the unified single source to remind us or to let us know that we aren't separate, that we're connected in every which way. And we also get the influence of the light to tell us that a relationship is dependent on our capacity to relate as well. That the more I open my heart, the more the will of Hashem will open and shine down on me. And so that was the teaching that I gave from section 5 of Derech Mitzvosecha. And I give this over again now in a digital form in the merit of Reb Chaim ben Reb Avraham. May his neshama have an aliyah. Thank you.